The alarm bells rang across Kepler Haven Station like a death song. The deep metallic howls echoed through every corridor, bouncing off the steel walls and shaking the hearts of everyone inside. Commander Jake Morrison ran, his heavy boots hammering the grated floor. Sweat slid down his forehead as he dodged frightened crew members rushing in the opposite direction. Jake had lived on the station for 12 years. He had been through drills, reactor scares, even pirate raids. But he had never heard the emergency alarm run this long, this sharp. Something was different. Something was wrong. He burst into the control hall, a wide chamber lined with glass screens and glowing consoles. Dozens of officers sat frozen at their stations, their eyes locked on the largest screen at the front. Jake's breath caught when he saw it too. Captain Lisa Bennett's face filled the screen, her hair tangled, her uniform torn. There was blood on her temple. Behind her, the interior of her ship, the Aurora Dawn, flickered with sparks and smoke. "Commander Morrison," Lisa's voice shook as though she had been speaking for hours. "You need to hear this." Jake dropped into his command chair, heart racing. "What did you find, Captain?" Lisa swallowed, her eyes hollow. "Ships, hundreds of them, no, thousands, we've never seen anything like it. They're alive, Jake, alive, metal and flesh welded into monsters. They don't speak, they don't answer hails, they just—" She cut herself off, breath trembling. Jake leaned forward, fists tightening on the armrests. "Lisa, what did they do?" Her lips quivered before the words finally escaped. "They destroyed the Omega colony." The room fell silent. The sound of the alarm seemed to fade. Omega wasn't just another outpost. It was a shining jewel, a fully terraformed planet with 15 million people. "They didn't just bombard it," Lisa continued. "They drained it. The oceans, the air, even the crust of the world itself. Gone. I saw it happen. They call themselves the Void Reapers." A young officer, Sam Peters, stood from his console, his hands shaking. "Captain, how did you escape?" Lisa's eyes turned distant, her voice fatting to a whisper. "We hid behind a dead moon, watched while they fed, then we ran, but they're coming. They're moving toward every living world, toward us." Jake felt his stomach twist. His world spun. He pressed the comms button on his chair. "Patch me through to the Galactic Council, now." Within hours, the station filled with refugee ships. Hulls scorched, engines broken, cabins crammed with the desperate. The first vessel came from the Zephyr system. Its captain, a tall, blue-skinned alien named Sexville, staggered down the ramp. His eyes burned with tears. "The Reapers came in the night," he rasped. "They didn't speak, didn't offer surrender, they just consumed. My people lived on Zephyr Prime for 10,000 years, now it is ash." More ships followed. Each one brought the same tale, worlds gone silent, skies turned black, whole civilizations erased. Jake tried to keep his voice steady as he coordinated relief crews, but he knew it was pointless. Every survivor was only a shadow of what had been lost, and the Reapers were still coming. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called at Central Point Station, the hub of 47 known species. Jake arrived as part of the human delegation, though humanity had never been granted a council seat. As he entered the chamber, his eyes widened at the assembly: the crystalline Zapirians, the furry Kellans, the rock-skinned Gordians, and dozens more. All faces turned toward the council dais. Council leader Vexar, old and pale even for a Zapirian, raised his trembling hands. "Friends, we face the end of everything. The beings calling themselves Void Reapers have destroyed 43 star systems in the last month. Every fleet we sent has been annihilated, our weapons useless." The chamber filled with whispers, cries, and fearful clicks of alien tongues. A Kellan representative squeaked above the noise. "What of the core world defenses? Surely they can hold." Vexar's head lowered. "Our scientists say the Reapers will reach the core worlds in 6 months, perhaps less." The chamber fell into silence, the kind of silence that spoke of entire futures shattering. Then a voice rose from the back, calm, human. "We still have one option." All eyes turned. An older woman walked forward, boots striking like hammers on the floor. Admiral Kate Sullivan. Her hair was gray, her uniform plain, but her eyes cut like steel. "You didn't want humans in your council," she said coldly. "You called us too violent, too dangerous. You whispered about our home being a death world where even the plants try to kill you." She stopped in the center of the chamber, staring into the frightened eyes of alien leaders. "Well, now you need killers." The room erupted in gasps. Council leader Vexar raised his hand. Admiral Sullivan, what exactly are you offering? Kate's lips curved into the faintest smile. Everything, every ship, every soldier, every weapon humanity has, but we fight our way, by our rules. We don't fight to survive. We fight to win or die trying. The chamber buzzed with nervous chatter. Some species hissed in fear. Others leaned forward, desperate for hope. Jake Morrison watched from his seat, his chest tight. For the first time since Omega fell, he felt something stir inside him. Not hope. Something harder. Something sharper. A promise of war. And as the chamber descended into chaos, Admiral Sullivan raised her voice above them all. You wanted Deathworlders kept away, but when death came for the galaxy, she spread her arms wide. Only Deathworlders answered. The chamber froze, every species stared at her. And Jake knew in that moment, the galaxy had just changed forever. The vote was chaos. Tentacles, claws, wings, and trembling hands rose one by one inside the Grand Council chamber. Some aliens voted yes, desperate for survival. Others refused, too afraid of the humans who had been called monsters for centuries. But finally the motion passed. Earth's military would be unleashed. Council leader Vexar's voice echoed across the chamber. Admiral Sullivan, the Council accepts your aid. May the stars forgive us. Kate Sullivan bowed her head once, her voice steady. Send us the coordinates and start evacuating your core worlds. This war will get worse before it gets better. 3 days later on Earth, President Alan Carter read the Council's message in his office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The waves sparkled under the sun, but he barely saw them. His world was about to burn. Sir, said his aide through the door, the generals are here. Carter straightened his suit, then spoke into the comm. Send them in. The door opened and 4 figures entered. General Susan Torres, scarred and battle-hardened from the corporate wars. Admiral Paul Richardson, tall, with cold eyes that had stared down rebellions. General Carl Hayes, broad as a tank, and Dr. Carol Reeves, head of the Science Division. You've all seen the report, Carter said quietly. How bad is it? Torres set her tablet on the table. Worse than anything in human history. The Void Reapers drain entire planets in hours. Our allies are being erased. What do we have that can stop them? Admiral Richardson leaned forward. Everything, sir. Project Lazarus is ready. The room went silent. Only 50 people in existence knew about Lazarus. How many ships? Carter asked. Richardson's lips twitched in a grim smile. 6,000 combat vessels, each one built for one purpose, war. Dr. Reeves spoke up, her voice tense. And there's something else. I've studied the samples Captain Bennett brought back. The Reaper ships aren't machines, they're alive. They eat planets to grow more of themselves. They spread like a virus. Carter's face hardened. Then we'll cure them, whatever it takes. On Mars, in the Red Dust training grounds, Lieutenant Ben Walsh drilled recruits in zero-gravity combat. His comm buzzed with a single line of text. Report to base, full combat gear. He froze. He had fought rebellions on Titan and mining wars on Europa, but this message was different. His gut told him this was the real war. Minutes later, his 30 soldiers assembled in the briefing room. All veterans, all scarred, but all of them looked nervous. Ben had never seen them like that before. Listen up, Ben said, his voice steady. We've got new orders. We're going to war, not against pirates, not rebels, aliens. The room buzzed. Aliens, Corporal Mike Johnson frowned. What kind? Ben tapped a console and a hologram lit the room. A Void Reaper ship, massive, insect-like, pulsating with flesh and metal. Gasps filled the room. They're called Void Reapers, Ben explained. They don't talk, they don't negotiate, they kill everything. Private Danny Torres, the youngest in the squad, whispered, How the hell do we fight that? The same way we always fight, Ben said grimly. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't stop until the enemy is ash. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Carol Reeves worked alone in her sealed lab. A chunk of Reaper biomaterial floated in a glass chamber, pulsing like a beating heart. It glowed faint green in the dim light. Organic, Carol muttered, her voice hoarse after 3 sleepless nights. But engineered, adaptive, self-repairing. Her assistant, Dr. Peter Kim, leaned over her shoulder. It's like it's rewriting itself. It's immune to every test you've tried. Carol rubbed her tired eyes, then smiled bitterly. Then we stopped playing nice. She began typing commands into her console. Earth has life that thrives where nothing else survives. Bacteria in boiling acid, fungi in nuclear waste, viruses that eat radiation. Peter's eyes widened. You want to use Earth's extremophiles? Carol nodded. We'll give the Reapers a taste of our Deathworld. Let's see how they like it. Above Earth, the first fleet of warships came alive. The USS Liberty, a battleship 2 miles long, rumbled as its engines roared. Its hull gleamed black, lined with weapons ports and shield arrays. Captain Rick Harper stood on the bridge, watching Earth shrink on the viewscreen. His second-in-command, Commander Janet Stone, saluted. All systems green, fleet ready for hyperspace. Rick's voice was low, steady. Signal all ships, Formation Alpha, time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. 20 ships followed him into the void. Behind them, hundreds more prepared to launch. In the shipyards on Titan, workers raced to finish humanity's crown jewel. The Vengeance, a dreadnought so massive it could crack a moon with its main weapon. Admiral Richardson stood on the observation deck as it floated free. Signal all commands. Humanity is going to war. That night, President Carter recorded a message for every human settlement in the galaxy. My fellow humans, he began. For 200 years we fought each other. Over resources, over territory, over pride. Today that ends. Today we face something far worse. The Void Reapers want to erase every living thing. He leaned closer, voice darkening. Other species call us violent, dangerous, monsters. Today they will learn the truth. Sometimes you need monsters to fight monsters, and Earth breeds the best monsters of all. His words traveled across the stars, stirring miners on Europa, farmers on Kepler 9, soldiers on Mars. Everywhere, humans listened and prepared. For war. 3 days later, Captain Harper's fleet reached the Arcturus system. Sensors lit up, 12 Reaper ships moving toward the colony planet Arcturus Prime, home to 8 million civilians. Sir, enemy ships are 3 times our size, Commander Stone warned. Our weapons may not even scratch them. Rick's jaw clenched. Then we get close enough to make sure they do. Behind him, the fleet moved into formation. The first battle of the war had begun. On a distant observation station, alien Captain Thelvas of the Zethurian Navy watched in disbelief. The humans aren't maneuvering, his sensor officer whispered. They're flying straight at the Reapers. Thelvas scribbled notes, convinced the humans were suicidal. Then the Reapers fired, blinding streams of energy that melted anything they touched. The human ships shook, armor peeling away, but they kept coming. And then the humans answered. Not with clean beams, not with elegant alien weapons, but with nuclear fire. Explosions lit the void like newborn suns. 3 Reaper ships staggered, torn apart by radiation. Thelvas gasped. By the ancestors, they're fighting with nuclear weapons. They're insane. He was still staring when one human ship, the Hammer, broke formation and accelerated toward the largest Reaper. Inside, Commander Pete Johnson gave his final order. All crew to pods, I'm staying. His lieutenant grabbed his arm. Sir, what are you doing? Something no sane man would try, Pete whispered with a grim smile. He aimed his burning ship straight at the Reaper. This is Commander Johnson. Tell my wife I remembered to take out the trash. The Hammer slammed into the alien vessel. The overloaded reactor exploded, a star igniting in miniature. The blast was seen from 3 systems away. When it cleared, both ships were gone, but so were 2 more Reapers. On the Zethurian observation post, Captain Thelvas dropped his stylus, stunned. Did he just kill himself on purpose? Yes, sir, and he took 4 enemy vessels with him. Thelvas stared at the human fleet still fighting, still pressing forward through fire and death. No civilized species would ever fight like this, he whispered. And yet the humans weren't just fighting. They were winning. The battle at Arcturus Prime raged like a storm. Nuclear detonations split the dark. Human ships tore through the void with reckless fury. Yet still, the Reapers pressed in, their living hulls bleeding green light, their monstrous forms repairing even under fire. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Rick Harper gripped the railing. Sweat dripped from his brow as alarms shrieked. Shields failing on the Washington, Commander Janet Stone reported. The hammer is gone. We've lost 37 souls already. Rick's eyes hardened. And we'll lose millions more if we retreat, push the line, keep firing. But it wasn't enough. The Reapers weren't just durable, they were overwhelming. Slowly, they encircled the human fleet. The trap closed. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Sir." Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster stepped forward, armor still scorched from escape pods. She had served on the hammer before Commander Pete Johnson's sacrifice. Her jaw was set, her eyes burning. "Permission to lead a boarding party." Rick blinked at her. "Board a Reaper ship. They're alive, Foster, full of toxins and gods know what else. It's suicide." "Maybe," Amy said simply. "But if we can get inside, we can learn how to kill them, permanently." Rick studied her face. No fear, just determination, the same fire Pete Johnson had shown. He nodded once. "Take 20, but if it goes bad, we're not coming for you." Amy saluted. "Wouldn't expect you to." Minutes later, the boarding craft launched. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't safe. It was a missile with people inside. The vessel screamed across the battlefield, dodging Reaper fire by a miracle. Then impact. The drill nose cut into a Reaper's pulsating hull. Metal shrieked against alien flesh, and then they were through. The hatch blew open, and Amy Foster charged into the nightmare. The air was thick green and reeking of rot. The walls pulsed like muscle, dripping with mucus. Every step squelched on organic floors. The ship was no machine. It was a stomach, a corpse, a beast. "Spread out," Amy ordered, her voice steady. "Plant charges, shoot anything that moves." Her Marines advanced, their heavy armor groaning under the pressure. Weapons roared. Depleted uranium rounds tore through alien biomass. The first Reaper soldier appeared, 8 feet tall, too many arms, eyes glowing red like coals. Sergeant Tony Martinez faced 3 of them in a narrow corridor. His rifle clicked empty. He grinned grimly. "Come on, uglies, let's dance." He yanked the pins from 2 grenades and held them close. The explosion shook the ship, killing Martinez and ripping apart the Reaper warriors. But more importantly, it ruptured a glowing conduit running through the walls. Lights flickered. The whole vessel screamed. Amy pressed her comm. "This is Foster. We've hit their power lines. Recommend friendly ships pull back to minimum safe distance. We're lighting the match." On the Liberty, Captain Harper's voice cracked through the static. "Foster, get your people out of there." "Negative," Amy replied. "Someone has to make sure this thing blows." She turned to her squad. "Move, Marines, plant the last charges." The humans became ghosts in the monster's veins. They hacked at bioconsoles, jammed explosives into pooling sacks, and left behind a trail of ruin. Every step was a war. The ship fought back. Reaper warriors poured through the corridors, screeching in voices that sounded like grinding metal. Acid dripped from the ceiling. Flesh walls tried to close around them. But the Marines didn't stop. When the final charges were armed, Amy keyed her comm one last time. "Tell my kids I love them." The ship split open like rotten fruit. The explosion ripped it apart from within, spilling toxic fluids into space. 2 nearby Reapers were torn apart in the blast. But Amy wasn't finished. Inside a sealed chamber, 6 survivors coughed and groaned. The bulkhead had shielded them from the worst of the blast. Amy opened her eyes. Her armor was cracked, her ribs screaming, but she was alive, and so were 6 of her Marines. "On your feet," she ordered. Private Danny Torres gasped. "Ma'am, what are we doing? We survived. Let's get out." Amy checked her rifle, loaded the last magazine. "No, we're going again." The Marines stared in disbelief. "You're insane," one whispered. "Maybe," Amy said with a grin. "But the enemy doesn't know that. As far as they're concerned, we're a full assault force, so let's make them believe it." They cut their way into another Reaper vessel. For the next hour, 6 humans terrorized an entire warship. They set traps with explosives, turned bioconduits into weapons, and flooded chambers with alien blood. Every encounter was brutal, desperate, and insane. Yet the Marines fought like wolves in a slaughterhouse. By the time they ran out of ammunition, they had killed hundreds of Reapers and crippled the ship's main weapons. On the Liberty, Captain Harper could hardly believe the reports. 2 Reaper vessels destroyed from the inside, a 3rd disabled. The alien observer, Captain Thelvas, wrote furiously in his journal. "Humans do not fight like civilized species. They fight like predators. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They wield weapons that wound even themselves, and most disturbing, they seemed to enjoy it. Finally, the surviving Reaper ships retreated. The battle was over. Against impossible odds, the humans had won. On the Liberty's bridge, Commander Stone looked at the casualty reports. 1 ship lost, 37 dead. Rick Harper exhaled slowly, and in return, Stone's voice trembled. 8 Reaper ships destroyed, thousands of their warriors dead. Rick's eyes darkened. Then send a message to Admiral Sullivan. Tell her the Reapers learned their first lesson about fighting Deathworlders. Stone tilted her head. And what lesson is that? Rick allowed himself the faintest smile. We don't fight fair. He looked out at the wreckage drifting in space. We fight to win. On Central Point, Council Leader Vexar read the first battle reports aloud. His voice shook. The humans destroyed 8 Reaper ships, with only 20 vessels. Murmurs filled the chamber. Hope flickered, but so did fear. The Zethurian Captain Thelvas presented his report. The humans are different. They do not value survival. They value victory, even if it costs them their own lives. A furry Kellen representative trembled. They are as frightening as the Reapers. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood tall in the chamber. Good, fear us. Fear is a weapon, and right now it's the only one we have left. But the Reapers were not finished. In the dark beyond the Arcturus system, a signal pulsed through the void. From system to system, like wildfire, the Reaper call spread. And whole fleets, thousands of ships, began turning toward one destination. 6 months passed. 6 months of blood and fire. 6 months of desperate battles fought in the shadows of dying stars. The humans had bought time at Arcturus, but the Void Reapers had learned. No longer did they send small hunting packs. Now they came in waves, hundreds, sometimes thousands of ships at once. Each one a planet-eater, a living fortress. The galaxy burned. On Mars, in the war room beneath Olympus Mons, General Susan Torres stood before the massive tactical map. Red dots filled the display, Reaper-claimed systems. Entire swathes of the galaxy now glowed like infected wounds. How many this month? She asked quietly. Colonel Mark Williams scrolled through his tablet, his face pale. 48 ships lost. That's nearly 800,000 crew. The Zapirian fleet is down to half strength. The Kellen defense force gone. Torres rubbed her eyes, exhaustion dragging at her bones. And Reeves, where is she? Far below the Rockies on Earth, Dr. Carol Reeves worked in her lab. She looked like a ghost of herself, hair wild, face gaunt, eyes red from sleepless nights. Yet her hands were steady as they adjusted the seals on the chamber. Inside, a Reaper biomass sample writhed. It had adapted to every poison, every weapon. It consumed whatever she fed it. But now she was ready. Peter, she said to her assistant, her voice raspy, bring the extremophile cultures. Dr. Peter Kim hesitated. These organisms, they kill anything they touch. Some eat radiation, some eat acid, some don't even have DNA the way we know it. Good, Carol whispered. That's what makes them perfect. Peter swallowed hard. If this works, we'll have a weapon that could wipe out every Reaper ship in the galaxy. Carol's eyes darkened. Not could, Peter, will. She tapped the glass chamber. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become one. Meanwhile, at Luna shipyards, the humans revealed their hidden strength. For decades, humanity had been dismissed as weak, fractured, too few. The aliens had seen only their exploration vessels, their small colony defense craft. Now the truth was unleashed. 6,000 warships. Not sleek like the Zapirian cruisers or elegant like Kellen frigates. No, human ships were brutal things. Black steel, jagged armor, layered hulls designed to fight even while burning. They looked less like machines and more like weapons forged from rage. The crown jewel was the Vengeance, the largest warship ever built by human hands. A dreadnought 3 miles long, with a cannon that could split a moon. Its hull bristled with nuclear silos, railguns, and missile bays. On the observation deck, Admiral Paul Richardson stared at the beast with pride. This is humanity, he said quietly. Ugly, relentless, built for war. At the Battle of Proxima, Richardson's fleet of 50 ships faced over 1,000 Reapers. Sir, the odds are 20-1, Commander Helen Baker reported. Richardson smirked. Almost seems fair. The battle was a massacre. The humans used every dirty trick they'd ever learned from centuries of killing each other. They disguised nuclear mines as asteroids. They unleashed computer viruses that infected Reaper bioships, turning them against their own. They rammed damaged ships into enemy clusters, detonating reactors like suicide bombs. The void lit with death. But the numbers were too great. One by one, the human ships fell. Even the mighty Valiant and Ironhammer were torn apart. On the bridge of the Determination, Admiral Richardson gave his final order. "This is Richardson to all forces. Remember, Earth doesn't surrender. We just make the other guy wish he'd never been born." The Determination plunged into the enemy swarm. Its reactor blew, ripping 12 Reaper ships apart. Richardson's voice cut off. His fleet was gone. But the galaxy would remember the massacre at Proxima. Elsewhere, a different kind of mission unfolded. The stealth frigate Shadow Walker crept through the wreckage of Kepler 7, a once beautiful world of crystal forests and floating cities, now reduced to dust. Its captain, Nicole Davis, adjusted her stealth controls, voice low. "Target acquired. Reaper command ship ahead." Her second-in-command, Joe Miller, muttered, "You want aboard that? You're insane." "Maybe," Nicole replied, "but unless we learn how they coordinate, we'll all be dead in a year." The Reaper command vessel was a horror, 10 miles long, covered in pulsating eyes, surrounded by smaller escorts. Nicole's team of 12 Marines loaded their weapons. Every one of them volunteers. Every one of them knew they wouldn't be coming home. The Shadow Walker punched forward, its boarding spike drilled into the Reaper's living hull. Nicole and her squad stormed inside. It was worse than the reports. The corridors dripped with mucus, the air was poison, the walls twitched with nerve endings. The Reaper guards came in swarms. The fighting was savage. Nicole lost half her team in the first 10 minutes, but still she pushed forward. At last they reached the Central Intelligence Core, a pulsing brain-like structure glowing with green light. "Download everything," Nicole barked. Lieutenant Jack Robinson, the youngest of the crew, worked frantically on the alien console. "Captain, I think I found something." "What is it?" "They're all connected. These fleets, they're run by command ships. Destroy the command vessels and the fleets collapse." Nicole's eyes lit with the faintest glimmer of hope. "How many command ships?" 50, Jack said, "spread across the galaxy." Nicole bared her teeth in a bloodied smile. "Then we just found their weakness." The download finished, the data stored, but alarms screamed. The Reapers knew they were there. "Go," Nicole shoved Jack toward the exit. "Get this home, whatever it takes." "What about you?" Jack shouted. Nicole looked back at the pulsing core. "Someone has to make sure they don't follow." She stayed behind, overloading the Shadow Walker's reactor. The explosion ripped the command vessel in half. Jack's escape pod drifted into the void. He was the only survivor. 3 days later, Jack staggered into the war room on Mars. General Torres looked at the data, her eyes wide. "This changes everything. If we can strike the command ships at once, we can cripple them." But even as she spoke, new reports came in. The main Reaper fleet, thousands of ships, was moving toward the core worlds. And Earth was directly in their path. The news hit like a hammer. The Reaper main fleet was coming. Thousands of ships, more than any defense grid, more than any fleet had ever faced. And their destination was clear, Sol. In Geneva, deep beneath the surface, President Alan Carter gathered Earth's leaders in the global war bunker. Generals, admirals, scientists, corporate executives, colonial governors, even the Outer Rim pirates were represented. Carter's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Reapers will be here in 2 weeks. This is our last chance to stop them." He turned to Dr. Carol Reeves. "Is the weapon ready?" Carol stood slowly. She looked older than her years, her skin pale, her eyes haunted. She had been living with the monster she had built for too long. "It's ready," she whispered. "But once we use it, there's no going back. It won't just kill them. It will infect their entire kind. It is, by every measure, genocide." The room went still. "And if we don't use it?" Carter asked softly. Carol's eyes glistened. "Then everything dies anyway." Silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the lights. Everyone in the room knew the choice had already been made. "Prepare the weapon," Carter said finally. His voice was iron. "And may God forgive us." Across the solar system, Earth's secret was revealed. For 50 years, while the Council had dismissed humanity as reckless savages, Earth had been preparing. Slowly, quietly, they had turned their home into something no alien could imagine. A fortress. The asteroid belt came alive with hidden weapon platforms, railguns buried in the rock. Jupiter's moons split open, revealing colossal particle cannons built into the ice. Even Earth's own moon cracked apart, disgorging silos of nuclear warheads. Every planet, every moon, every rock armed. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't elegant. It was terrifying. On the bridge of the dreadnought Vengeance, Admiral Kate Sullivan surveyed the tactical displays. Thousands of red dots marked incoming Reaper vessels. "Final count?" she asked. Captain Bill Turner, her XO, answered grimly. 8,000 enemy ships. We have 2,000, outnumbered 4-1. Kate's lips twitched in a humorless smile. Better odds than usual. In orbit, the Liberty's End took its place. The last of Earth's dreadnoughts, bristling with nuclear firepower, its hull lined with more weapons than some entire fleets. Captain George Mitchell stood on its bridge, staring at the blue-green curve of Earth, his home, his children's home. Billions waited below, praying the fleet could hold. His weapons officer turned to him. "Sir, we're loaded with enough warheads to sterilize a system. Dr. Reeves's bioweapon is ready in missile form. We await your command." George placed his hand on the cold steel railing. "Then let's make this count." And then they came. The Reaper fleet poured out of hyperspace like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. 8,000 living ships, their hulls pulsating with alien flesh, their weapons glowing green. The void itself seemed to scream. "All ships," Kate Sullivan commanded, her voice carrying to every vessel in the fleet. "Activate Scorched Earth Protocol." Across the solar system, weapons awoke. The belt unleashed nuclear fire. Jupiter's moons speared beams of light through the void. Saturn's rings, mined with mines, detonated in chain reaction. The void became an inferno. And still the Reapers came. They ate the fire, they bled, but they kept moving. Their numbers were too vast. "They're breaking through the outer line," Turner warned. Kate slammed her fist onto the console. "Launch the bioweapon, all silos, all platforms, now." Thousands of missiles streaked into the dark. They carried not explosives, but death itself, Carol Reeves's engineered plague, bred from Earth's deadliest life forms. The first Reaper ships struck trembled. Their hulls convulsed, their glowing eyes flickered. Then they turned on each other, shrieking as the virus tore through their neural networks. On Earth's surface, Dr. Reeves monitored the data. Her hands shook, her heart thundered. "It's working," Peter Kim whispered beside her. But Carol didn't smile. She saw the side effects. The virus was spreading into the void, contaminating space itself. Earth's atmosphere would not remain untouched. She whispered almost to herself, "I've saved the galaxy by damning our own world." In orbit, the battle raged. The Reaper command ships struggled as the virus ate at their control systems, yet their numbers pressed harder. On the Liberty's End, Captain Mitchell watched the hull breach warnings flash red. His ship was surrounded, burning. "Sir," his first officer gasped, "we can't hold them much longer." Mitchell looked one last time at Earth, at the planet that had birthed Deathworlders. "Set course for their largest command ship," he ordered. His crew hesitated. "Sir, that's suicide." "I know," Mitchell smiled faintly. "Signal the crew to abandon ship, I'll take her in." But his crew did not leave. Not one. Every man and woman stayed at their post as the dreadnought surged forward. Mitchell gave his last transmission, his voice carrying across every human channel. "This is Captain George Mitchell. Tell Earth we don't yield, we don't surrender, we just make the other guy wish he'd never been born." The Liberty's End rammed the Reaper command ship head-on. Its reactor went critical. The explosion lit the void brighter than the sun. The Reaper flagship was gone. Across the battle lines, the virus spread. Reaper ships twisted, screamed, turned on each other in madness. Command vessels collapsed one by one. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Turner's voice shook. "Admiral, it's working. All 50 command ships failing. Their fleets are falling apart." Kate Sullivan stood tall, eyes hard. Then press the attack, burn them all. And the Deathworlders did. The battlefield around Earth was silent. For 3 days, the wreckage of the Void Reapers drifted like a graveyard in the void. Their monstrous ships no longer pulsed with alien life. Their flesh-like hulls dissolved into dust. The virus had done its work. Humanity had won. But the cost was carved into the stars. Nearly half the human fleet lay in ruins. Thousands of pilots and soldiers were gone, their names already whispered in mourning across colonies and stations. Earth itself still lived, but its sky had changed forever. In her underground lab, Dr. Carol Reeves stared at her monitors. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "It worked," Peter Kim said, trying to sound relieved. "The virus targeted only Reaper biology, nothing else." Carol shook her head slowly. "No, Peter, look closer." He leaned over the data. His smile vanished. Radiation, particulate spread, microscopic contamination across Earth's upper atmosphere. "Any alien who sets foot here," Peter swallowed hard, "they'll die." Carol's voice was flat dead. "Our home world is now poison to everyone but us." She sank into her chair, whispering to herself. "We saved the galaxy by making ourselves untouchable." At Central Point, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber. Some wore mourning colors. Others looked at the humans with open fear. Council leader Vexar's voice trembled as he addressed them all. "The Reapers are gone, the galaxy lives, and it is humanity we have to thank." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A furry Kellen representative squeaked. "But at what cost? Their weapon killed the enemy, but it made their world toxic. They are more dangerous now than ever." A Gordian delegate rumbled like stone grinding on stone. "They turned their planet into a weapon. What if they turn it on us?" Fear grew like wildfire. Then Admiral Kate Sullivan rose. She stood at the center of the chamber, her uniform still scorched from battle. Her gray hair was pulled tight, her eyes burning steel. "You're afraid of us," she said flatly. "Good, you should be." Gasps spread across the chamber. "You call Earth a death world, you call us monsters, and you're right. But when death came for you, who answered? Not your fleets, not your defenses, you begged, and the monsters came." Silence, dozens of alien eyes blinked, stared, trembled. Council leader Vexar cleared his throat. "The Council wishes to offer Earth full membership, voting rights, trade agreements, cultural exchange. You have earned your place." President Carter, standing beside Sullivan, shook his head. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber like thunder. "No, we will keep our distance." Vexar's eyes widened. "But why?" Carter turned, gesturing at the planet gleaming outside the station's window. "You wanted killers, that's what we became. We saved you, but we cannot sit in your chambers pretending we are like you. We are not. We will patrol the borders. We will watch the dark. And if another Reaper comes, you know how to call us." The chamber murmured, confusion, fear, relief. And then Carter added, his voice colder still. "But until then, the monsters will stay in their cage." Back on Earth, survivors gathered at the craters where wreckage had fallen. Families lit candles for the dead. Children stared at the skis where battles had burned like suns. In orbit, patrol fleets combed through the wreckage, making sure no Reaper technology survived. Captain Linda Hayes, once an engineer, now a hardened commander, stood on the bridge of her patrol ship. "Any signs of activity?" she asked. "Negative, Captain," her sensor officer replied. "The virus was absolute, nothing left but debris." Linda nodded, her eyes drifting to the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were rebuilding, returning to peace. But humans would not forget. They had seen what the galaxy truly was. And they knew what they had become. In the quiet dark beyond known space, automated human listening posts kept their vigil. They were small, silent stations placed at the edge of the galaxy. Their purpose was simple. To watch, to listen, to send a single message if danger came again. 4 words. The Deathworlders are coming. Far beyond, in the gulf between galaxies, something stirred. Ancient, hungry, patient. The Void Reapers had only been the first. But now, the galaxy had guardians unlike any other. Guardians born from storms, raised in poison, forged in fire. monsters who had chosen to remain monsters so that others could remain innocent. And Earth waited, scarred and silent, ready to answer when death came again. The galaxy celebrated, but Earth did not. On 1,000 worlds, survivors raised statues, sang songs, and told stories of the Deathworlders who had stood against extinction. In glittering cities, children played games where they pretended to be human soldiers, charging bravely into impossible odds. But on Earth, the skies were quiet. The oceans rolled with a heavy silence. The forests stood untouched, for no alien dared set foot on the poisoned cradle of humanity. The world had become a fortress, but also a prison. In Geneva, President Alan Carter met with Admiral Kate Sullivan in the bunker that had guided the war. Reports from across the galaxy littered the table. Refugees returning, colonies rebuilding, council fleets limping back to life. "You've given them hope," Carter said, his voice tired, "but they still fear us." Kate gave a thin smile. "Good, fear will keep them alive, fear will keep them honest." Carter studied her. "And us, what do we become now?" Kate leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "What we've always been, the wall against the dark, the monsters that guard the fire." In the outer systems, humanity's fleets grew restless. Lieutenant Ben Walsh stood with his Marines on a barren moon, watching the wreckage of a Reaper hull burn in the sky. His squad, bloodied and scarred, looked older than their years. Private Danny Torres finally spoke. "Sir, it's over, right? We won." Ben stared at the stars where no light shone. "Wars end, but danger never does. Out there, something's always waiting." He didn't add the thought that clawed at him, "And when it comes, we'll be waiting too." In her underground lab, Dr. Carol Reeves kept working. She had destroyed the Reapers, but her hands would never feel clean again. She had turned Earth into a weapon, and she couldn't forgive herself for it. Peter Kim entered quietly. "Carol, you should rest. The war is over." Her eyes, hollow and red, never left the monitors. "No, Peter, the Reapers weren't the end. They were the beginning. We need to be ready for what comes next." Her voice dropped to a whisper, "Because something will come." And she was right. At the very edge of the galaxy, beyond the silent wreckage fields, deep in the dark between galaxies, something moved. Not ships, not life as anyone understood it, but a presence older than stars, vast and hungry. It stirred, sensing weakness, tasting the faint echo of the Reaper's fall. It waited. And when it came, the galaxy would tremble again. But humanity would be waiting. On every border, listening posts whispered into the void. Fleets prowled the black, watching. Soldiers drilled under alien suns, their eyes harder, their resolve sharper. The galaxy slept, dreaming of peace. The Deathworlders did not sleep. They sharpened their blades in silence. They watched the shadows, and they remembered the promise carved into the heart of every soldier, every commander, every human child raised under Earth's savage skies. When death comes for the galaxy, only Deathworlders will answer.